Thank you very much, President Miarez, Regent Pope, distinguished faculty administrators, parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren, great-grandparents and great-grandchildren, friends, siblings, residents of Maryland's 8th Congressional District, and above all to the graduating class, both undergraduates and graduates. What an honor this is. Thank you for this extraordinary honor of allowing me to address you on your graduation day. And I always love coming to campus. My daughter is a Terp here in her senior year. She lives about 5 minutes away. I invited her to come to hear my speech, and she said she would drop by if she's awake. Otherwise, she said I can text her a copy of my speech. After studying about a dozen commencement addresses, I resolved last week that there were 3 things I would not do today. 1, I would not say, "To thine own self be true." 2, I would not tell you that the future is yours or follow your dreams. And 3, I would not go over my allotted time, which is 1 hour and 47 minutes. Just kidding, it's 7 minutes, 7 minutes. So I asked people who'd given commencement addresses for advice. One of my colleagues in Congress said, "Follow the 5 B's. What's that? I asked. He said, be brief, brother, be brief. Okay. Another dismissed the whole enterprise of commencement speeches with this masterful Churchillian diss. He said, "In no other field of human endeavor do so few obsess for so long over words that so many will ignore." Okay. And then a college president I know told me not to worry because I could not do any worse than Kermit the Frog, who had given a commencement speech at a state university in the Midwest a few years back. One of the graduating students was quoted as saying at the time, "My parents spent $100,000 and I worked my tail off for 4 years so I could be addressed by a sock at graduation." So I have resolved only to do this, to give you one big compliment, a little scare, and a good dose of hope, and then I will be on my way and I will return to the grim partisan wars on Capitol Hill, and you will ride off into the sunset with your families and your new degrees and your skills and your ambitions and your hopes and dreams. So here's the compliment. The graduates today are praiseworthy because you went to college, 1, when it is extremely difficult to do so with all of your other responsibilities at work, in your professional lives, and with family and children and home obligations. And 2, you went when it was far more meaningful and educational to go to college, and you could truly grasp what it was all about. Now, middle-aged people like me, and of course when I say middle-aged, I'm speaking charitably, since it's hard to say I'm in the middle of my life unless I live to the age of 112, but middle-aged people like to say that youth is wasted on the young. And a close variant of that is that college is wasted on the young. And there is some truth in this. The prefrontal lobes of the brain do not close until the age of 24, 25, which means that most people who go to college right out of high school have, generally speaking, very little judgment or judgment impaired, or at least, shall we say, evolving judgment and cognition, which is why so many college students spend their time doing truly questionable things like bar crawls, frat parties, all-nighters, writing papers based on Wikipedia, and trying to date their roommate's girlfriend, okay? And I am not necessarily referring to my daughter and her friends, okay? But I know a little something from which I speak. Now, college was definitely wasted on me, although for a somewhat different reason. I was pretty much the opposite of all of you. My parents sent me to college when I was 16 years old, which was, in hindsight, a very subtle kind of child abuse. I remember arriving at college and everyone else was out drinking beer or losing their virginity, and I was carrying my Star Wars lunchbox and my new learner's permit, which I still hope to turn into a driver's license one day. I was not even mature enough to do stupid drunken things. I stayed up to 2:30 every night playing chess with my fellow nerd roommate, who was also 16. And the whole thing is a blur to me now, not because I was inebriated, but because I have blocked out the entire experience. But Those of you graduating today did not waste your college years killing your brain cells with beer and drinking games. You really went to college, and you studied, and you learned, you processed, you reflected, you deliberated, you debated, you grew. You became experts in something, you became masterful and erudite. You did it the right way. College was not wasted on you. So good for you, class of 2019, and good for you, UMUC. Now, I could stop there, but here's your little scare. When I was young, I used to think that there were these secrets to living that grown-ups had access to, and once you grew up, somebody would share the secrets with you, and then you'd be a grown-up, and everything would be fine, and everything in the world would make sense. And when I started to grow up and detect that some of the adults that I knew were flawed individuals, I thought perhaps the secrets came not with adulthood, but with college. And then when I went to college and graduated, I learned that no one gave you the secrets to life at college either, not even your most beloved professor or the best book that you read or your best friend. Each one can give you clues to your life, but that's it. Your life is the one thing that is ineradicably and irreplaceably your own. You can't delegate it, you can't outsource it, you can't privatize it, and so long as we are not living in The Handmaid's Tale, your life cannot be taken away from you by the state. Now, the freedom we enjoy is a precious thing, and it would be the key to all happiness except for one thing. We do not live in isolation, we live in society. And in case you haven't noticed, we have some problems out there affecting all of us together. Big ones, like climate change, which is a civilizational emergency, like religious fanaticism and racial tribalism, both of which kill, massive wealth and income inequality, which threaten the promise of political democracy. When you look around the world, you can see the skeletons and the ghosts of the last century have come back to life and are haunting us. No one is going to save us from these things but us. We have to make our political, our social, and our economic institutions work for everyone, and you do have to be part of that. You have to participate because no government or corporate bureaucracy is going to save us from these dangers. We have to do it ourselves. To redeem the promise of freedom, we must all defend democracy together and reclaim the constitutional machinery of government. So here's your scare in this strange time. The structures that we have built and depend upon are only as strong as you make them, and we make them together. Lincoln said from the battlefield at Gettysburg that the Civil War would test whether any nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all of us are created equal could survive, and whether government of the people, by the people, and for the people would perish from the earth. He knew in his time that we could take nothing for granted, and we can take nothing for granted in our time either. But in the end, this should not give anyone a sense of hopelessness, but a sense of courage. We are the greatest multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial, liberal democracy that has ever existed. And even if we get lazy, and we forget that sometimes, we have the historical resources, we have the Constitution, we have the magnificent diversity and the educated citizenry we need to defeat authoritarianism and nihilism all over the world. We just need the energy and the patriotism to do it. Walt Whitman said, "The United States themselves are essentially the greatest poem." And Langston Hughes said, "I sing America too." So your graduation is a moment of great inspiration and renewal for the rest of us. My dad used to say, if everything looks hopeless, then you're the hope. And I look out into this amazing graduating class, and I see that each and every one of you is the hope for your family, for your friends, for your community, for our nation. President John Adams said, "I must study politics and war, that my sons may have the liberty to study mathematics and philosophy. And they shall study mathematics and philosophy, geography, history, naval architecture, navigation, commerce, and agriculture in order to give their children the right to study painting, poetry, music, architecture, tapestry, and porcelain." Well, history has not necessarily progressed in that linear, morally elevated way, and we are still studying politics and war along with the rest. But on the atoms theory, you soon-to-be graduates of this great school have actually moved along pretty well at America's long sought-after destination. You have done it all: art and science, war and peace, politics and philosophy and history, psychology and music. There is triumph and transcendence in the journey you have traveled. In your accomplishments, we can glimpse our most ardent hopes for what humanity might become. We honor you and we praise you today. We salute your children and we salute your parents for teaching you well and bringing you to this point. So now, it's all up to you. I know a great story about the late Robert F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, when he was working for the Senate subcommittee investigating racketeering in the labor movement, and he was questioning Jimmy Hoffa at a hearing, and he said, "Do you know, Mr. Hoffa, that as president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters and Secretary General of the Mid-Atlantic Teamsters Pension Fund, a man of your enormous power and influence and prestige is capable of doing both very great good and very great evil?" To which Hoffa replied, "I intend to live up to both of my responsibilities." Well, you now have the opportunity to live up to only one of these responsibilities. It'll take you less time, and it will leave you a lot happier. You have it within your power, within your education and your gifts, to go out and do very great good in the world. So go do it, and Godspeed to the class of 2019. Thank you.